Right. In yesterday's class, I had told you about how to basically install QTP and what are the various recording modes in QTP, how you can record your scripts, run them, and work with them using QTP. Fine. And there are certain recording and running rules as well for recording Windows based and web based applications. Right, so let's continue further. Right, today I am gonna teach you about the concepts of objects in QTP. Okay, in some time in coming lectures I'll also start with what do you say, descriptive programming. Fine, so right, or the VB scripting part basically. Okay, so many people they want to just do that first, but first of all let us learn the basic concepts of QTP, and after that we'll go over to advanced concepts. Right, so first of all let us see the concepts of objects in QTP. Okay, how QTP recognizes everything. Right, now yesterday I told you, if I click on the record button and I open my browser and I move over to the website, say gmail.com, and I put something in username, something in password, click on the sign in button, so this will try to sign me in. Right, so but everything will get recorded. Okay, sorry, those two lines never got recorded. Write into your email and yeah, I don't know why it never got recorded. Anyways, so what I'll do is I'll run this script now. And this script will repeat all the steps. Okay, see that? Alright, so now how is QTP executing everything, and how is QTP understanding that this is an edit box in which I have to write and all that stuff. Right, so basically what happens is that for QTP everything is an object. Okay, for example, what QTP has done is it has categorized things. Okay, inside QTP they have made certain classes. Right, so like what all is present. Suppose I'm talking just about a web-based application. Web-based application has got a button generally. Then web-based applications, they have an input box and edit box. Okay, then web-based applications, they have some text written on them. Right, now sometimes web-based applications they also have kind of drop down list into them, and similarly the list continues. There's a radio button, then there's a checkbox sometimes in which you click and check it. Right, and there's a link. The links are present inside the page. Right, then what QTP does is it calls everything, all of these things it calls as objects. Right, along with it, for QTP the browser which you open is also an object. For the page inside the browser, it's also an object. All these entities, they are present inside the page, so all these entities are also objects. So everything QTP is categorizing in objects. Okay, so objects, it's nothing but it's basically your categorization. Basically everything is categorized into objects, and to understand how QTP sees the objects, you have to use object spy. Okay, for example, I move over to this website gmail.com, and I want to see with the eyes of QTP how QTP is looking at this edit box or on this button. So you move over to QTP and click on this icon, object spy, right? You click on it and this kind of small window will open up, right? And on this window there is a small hand which is drawn. Now to work with this window, you have to make sure that the window in which you are interested, right, that this window, the Gmail window, you are interested in viewing this window, right? This should be opened behind QTP. That is, I have opened this window, now I will maximize my QTP. So this window is behind my QTP, right? So when I actually spy this window, when I click on this button spy, okay, the spy opens, right? Sorry, the QTP it vanishes and the window it comes in, right? I'll again show it to you. Wait a minute. Why is he calling me? Wait a minute. So, wait a minute. Okay, so you click on this hand and the QTP will vanish. Okay, all the windows behind QTP they will open, right? So this is object spy, right? So why the object spy is helpful in determining how QTP is seeing the objects, right? You click on object spy and maximize the window which you want to spy, right? And
Ashish, I'm not able to see your desktop.
Yeah, you will be able to see in some time, right?
Alright.
So
That's fine.
yeah, so this is object spy, and you click on this hand and QTP will vanish and the window behind QTP will come up, right? You move your mouse over the window and you will see that spy will tell properties of each and every element on which you move the spy cursor, right? Suppose I move my spy cursor over this Gmail, right? Now this Gmail, it is showing it as that this is a browser. Inside a browser there is a page, and inside a page there is a web table, and inside a web table there is an image. Okay, and each and every object over here, browser, page, web table, these are known as objects. Now QTP, it understands everything as an object. If I click on the browser object, I will be seeing the properties of the browser, that the application version is Mozilla Firefox 3.5.16, right? That the height is this much, name is this, Gmail email from Google and other stuff, right? Width is this much. If I click on the page tab, I will be able to see the properties of the page, that the title of the page is this and all, everything. The web table, we'll talk about web table later on what it is. Right now don't look into it, right? If you look at image, right, this will tell you the properties of the image Gmail, that the file name for this image is mail logo.png, HTML tag is image, and everything. Now similarly, if I move my mouse over the username field, okay, you will be able to see the properties of this web edit. This username field belongs to a class known as web edit. Okay, so these classes, they are predefined. Class name web edit. So QTP calls an input box a web edit. If I move my mouse over the button sign in, then this is a web button for QTP. Okay, and these are the properties of that button. Right, now this is just like Firebug in Mozilla. Okay, but it's quite better than that. Right, and if I click anywhere on the page, QTP will come back. QTP will come back and I will see everything. Right, similarly, when you are spying and sometimes you have a requirement of moving your spy window. If I try to move my spy window, I'll not be able to move it directly. Okay, you have to press the control of your keyboard, the control button of your keyboard, and the control button, what it does is it disables the spy. See, nothing is getting spied. As soon as I release the control button, the page is starting to spy. Right, so what I do is I press the control button, and you can, after pressing the control button, you can move the spy window. Okay, or you can click on any one of these elements. You cannot click on them without clicking on the control button. Okay, so here it is. So this is how you spy. Okay, so spy is just like an eye of QTP. If I open any desktop based application like a calculator, okay, and I spy it, if I spy this calculator, I'll press control and move the calculator on the left side, right? And if I spy this calculator, okay, oh, it's closing down. Okay, wait a minute. I'll maximize the calculator and this is the calculator, and now I will maximize my QTP. Make sure that calculator is behind QTP. So when I spy, I click on this hand. This is the calculator. See that this complete is a window. Complete thing is a window. Backspace is a win button. So the QTP calls the buttons on the Windows based applications as win buttons. This is a win edit, right? And these are the properties of this win edit. Now spy is on read only. It tells you what are the properties of an object. Okay. Now what happens is that when you are in the recording mode of QTP, okay, when you are recording something, then whatever action you perform on whatever link, button, edit box, wherever you click on the page or write on the page, okay, whichever object you use, whether that object is a web edit, whether that object is a web button or a link, whatever it is, that will be added into QTP's memory, so that when you run the program, QTP recollects the same thing from its memory and run it. Okay, so the memory of QTP is known as object repository. This is the object repository. This is the memory of the QTP. Out here it stores all the objects which you use while recording. So I'll just open the object repository and I will maximize my calculator. So as soon as I click and maximize my calculator, the calculator object becomes a part of the QTP memory. That's fine. During recording, the user clicked on the calculator, I'll add it into my memory, right? Now when I click on the 7 button, the 7 button gets added into the memory. When I click on 8, 8 will be added. 5, 5 will be added, right? So basically object repository will hold only those things which you use from the application. Only those objects will be recorded which you actually use from your application. Fine. So I'll just stop the recording now. Right. So now when I run this again, when I run this piece of code again, it will recollect everything from the object repository. So this is about object repository. What happens is that it contains all the objects. Okay. Now it will contain only those objects which you have used, which you have clicked on, right? And that's why if I make if you see this number, some people think that if I change this 8 to 9, then this code will work, but this code will not work. If I run this code now, okay, this will throw an error that 9 win button object was not found in the object repository. Okay, so whatever you have whatever there is there in the code, it has to be mapped in the object repository. There are only 3 win buttons, 5, 7 and 8 over here, right? And if I look at my object repository, then if I click on 5, then it will display the name as 5. The class of this object is a win button and repository type local. Okay, what is the repository type local means, you'll be understanding it in coming lectures. Okay, there are two types of object repositories, local and shared, which I'll be taking in coming lectures, right? And these are some of the properties: descriptive, visual, ordinal and additional, right? So we'll be taking all these steps in detail, right? First of all, let's understand how this code is mapped with the object repository. If you look at the code, if I look at the line number 3, then it's written window calculator. That this is the class, these are the classes, whatever is not in the double quotes, these are the classes, predefined classes. So window is the inbuilt class, and QTP is, you're telling QTP that there is a window class object in the object repository whose name is calculator. So QTP goes in the object repository, finds the window class object. This is a window class object, the class of this object is window, name is calculator. Dot win button, this means that inside this object there is a win button object, this one, win button, whose name is 9. So it will not find it and it will throw an error. So had I put 8 over here, then it would have found the button, then it means that there is a win button class object 8 and dot click means click on that button. Fine. So this is how your code works. Similarly, if I record a web-based applications, I'll make a new test. You can make a new test from here. Right? If I record opening a browser, going over to Gmail, writing something in the username, right? That's this much. Fine. And if I look at my object repository now, then it has got various objects inside it, right? First of all, it has got this blue color object Mozilla Firefox Start. This is the browser. The class of this object is browser, right? And it's got two objects inside it. These yellow objects, they represent the class page. Every browser can have multiple pages inside it. It's very logical. In one browser you can open many pages, right? Multiple websites. So similarly, in one browser you have got multiple pages, right? And this page is the page which got opened when I launched the browser, and this is the page Gmail email from Google which opened after I navigated to gmail.com. So if you look at the code, the first line says that systemutil.run firefox.exe. That means run this exe file, open the Firefox. Okay. The next line says that there is a browser class object in the repository known as Mozilla Firefox Start. This is the browser class object, Mozilla Firefox Start, right? Inside it there is a page class object called Mozilla Firefox Start. This is the page class object, Mozilla Firefox Start. Dot sync. Dot sync means let the full page load and then only move forward. Okay, let the full page load completely, and after that I have written browser Mozilla Firefox Start dot navigate to gmail.com. That means go over to the website Gmail, right? And after that Mozilla Firefox start dot page email from Google. This is the page email from Google. Dot web edit email. Inside it there is an email edit box. This is a web edit whose name is email. Dot set the value this xxx, whatever you have to set. Fine. So now if I can also change the name of my objects. I can change the name of my browser Firefox object to my any name. I can rename it Mozilla, that's it. And I hit enter. It changes in the code also. See that? Right? Okay. Now if this email is an edit box, I can change its name to username and hit enter. So the name in the code also changes. But there is a catch here. The catch is that this name, username, is mapped with this, and this is just the name of the object having these properties. Okay, so these properties over here, don't change them. You can change this external name. This is a kind of external name over here, this one. You can change this one, but don't change the internal properties of this object which are out here. Okay, so now let us look at these properties. These properties, they come from the SPY. Okay, the SPY has got all the properties, but QTP says that fine, I can identify this username edit box with just 3 properties: type, name, and HTML tag. Okay, so if this is the object SPY, if I spy the Gmail window again and I go to my edit box username, then you see that the type of this object is text, right? The name is email, right? And in the object SPY, the same properties have come up. The type is text, name is email, and the HTML tag is input, right? So basically the thing is, the object, it's recognized by 3 properties out here: type, name, and HTML tag. If you want to delete a particular property, you can also delete it. Or if you want to add additional description properties to this object, you can also add additional properties. Fine. I want this object to also be recognized on the property of height. Height of this object should be 22. Then you click on OK and one more property will be added. Okay, so this is how you can add description properties to one object. Okay, now there's a particular disadvantage of working with object repository. First of all, right, I'm just working with object repository by recording and running my applications, right? Now what is an object repository? Object repository is just like a database. Okay, it's got a lot of stuff inside it, right? And if the size of the object repository increases and it goes beyond certain limit, right, generally above 2 MB or 3 MB in size, okay, what happens is that the code becomes slow, right? Because it takes time for QTP also to find an object in the object repository, right? So the script becomes slow when the size of the object repository becomes big, right? So what you have to do in that case is, people opt for descriptive programming. That is, they use VB scripting and they don't go in for object repository actually. Okay, but that doesn't mean that working with object repository is bad. Okay, it doesn't mean that. It depends on the kind of application you are using. If you are testing an application which is small in size, or you are testing a big application in which you don't need to execute many big test cases in a very rigorous manner, then you can use the object repository. Okay, it's completely dependent on the type of project you are using, you're automating, right? So first we'll look at the object repository in detail and then move over to the other part, right? Now if you look at the property of this browser Mozilla, right, and there's a property called value creation time 0. Now in yesterday's lecture I had told you that you can work with multiple browsers, right? At one time using QTP you can work on multiple browsers, right? Now how does QTP understands multiple browsers? Suppose I record wait a minute, I'll close all the browsers. Right. I'll start recording. Okay, I'll open up a browser. Right, and I will move over to the site gmail.com in this browser and type in something in username. Now after this I'll open one more browser and I will go to the website quicker.com and I will write something over here, right? And again I open one more browser and I go to the website in.rediff.com, right, and I click on the first link. Fine. So basically I have opened 3 browsers here, right, and on 3 browsers I have done different stuff. Okay, now if you go to your object repository, then you will see 3 browsers over here, and each browser will be having its own set of objects. Okay, the first browser, the second browser, the third browser, every browser will have its own set of objects. But the point to note here is that the creation time of these browsers it will vary. See that? The creation time of the first browser which is opened is 0, after that it is 1, and after that it is 2. So QTP requires actually these properties over here. Sorry, QTP requires the creation time of the browser to identify the browser. Okay, now always remember the concept of creation time, because when we do advanced QTP we will be using this concept of creation time, right? So the browsers, they are identified by the creation time in QTP, and inside every browser you can have multiple pages or multiple objects, whatever you want to have. Fine, right? So this is a very simple introductory concept for object repository. Okay, now let's look at some basic features of scripting first, of how to record and run in detail, and then I'll come back to object repository again, right? So you start recording. Right, you start recording a test and open a browser, navigate to the site quicker.com, right, and I enter my name over here and search it in the city Goa, right? So I have recorded this much. Okay, now there are various things with this script. Okay, first of all, if you want to save this script, you can go to file, save, and save it on the hard disk. I'll save it on my desktop as test1. Okay, so when I save it on my desktop, this will look like a folder. Okay, open this folder and there will be a lot of files. Alright, so the test will look like a folder on your desktop. So when you open QTP, and suppose I make a new test now, and I want to open the older test, you go to open test over here, and now the test, when you open it through QTP, this looks like an icon. The folder, it looks like an icon. You double click on it and it will get opened, right? So this is how you save your test basically. Okay, now when you save the test, the object repository is also saved with it. It's not like the object repository is lost or something. All the data of the test is stored. See that object repository.bdb file, something like that. Don't have to worry actually, okay, where that object repository is getting stored inside this folder, but yes, the object repository gets stored, right? So another thing is that suppose I have a browser opened and I'm already on the I'm already on the quicker.com website, okay, and I don't want this script to execute from the line number 1, that is open the firefox.exe and other stuff, okay. I don't want it to run from the line number 1, right? So what I have already navigated to quicker.com. I want it to run from 4th line, right? So in this case, you can right click on the 4th line and select run from step. So QTP will start mapping the objects from the object repository from the step number 4, and it will start running. But there's a condition. The condition is that the web page should be opened in that particular state. The application should be on that particular step in order to run it from that step. If I right click on line number 4 and select run from step and click on OK, so it will start running from this particular step. See that? It's running, right? It's running and it has printed Ashish. It has searched for Ashish, right? So this is how you can actually execute your scripts from a particular line. Okay. Now sometimes what you need to do is you want that you see that I have written navigate to quicker.com and in the resultant page enter the name Ashish. Okay. So whenever your page changes, okay, you should always put a synchronization in between. That is, I will write this much. The next page is quicker classifieds post. So I'll write over here browser mozilla.page quicker post dot sync. That means let the page load. Right? Whatever page I'm actually navigating to, dot sync means let it completely load. Okay. Now some people, instead of putting a sync, they prefer to put a command called wait for 5 seconds. Okay, now wait command, it is good, but if the page never loads in 5 seconds, it will move further. The control is gonna move on line number 6. Okay, so it's completely dependent on what you do. Okay, so wait 5 will make the code halt for 5 seconds, right? But it will actually move ahead without considering the fact whether the page has loaded completely or not. But this line over here, it will make the full page load and then only it will transfer the control to the next line. So there are situations, you'll come on and handle them later on, in which you want to introduce a wait or something, right? Okay, fine. So this wait is a command, it's not a part of the object repository. Okay, now I'll open the object repository again, right, and I'll spy. Okay, I'll spy I'll click on this hand and move my mouse over this drop list. This drop list is known as a web list. See that? I'll press Control and this is a web list. Okay. Now if I click on this web list, QTP will come back. Okay, this was a web element. Okay, QTP will come back, and now suppose there are situations in which you want find. I spied this web list and I need to add it to my object repository as well, right? So what you can do is you can directly add it to the object repository by clicking on this button, add object to repository. When I click on this button, this web list will be part of the repository. You see that this is a web list which I just added. Okay, and in order to use it, you can simply drag it to the code like this. I'll take a simpler example, right? Let's start with simple things first. Simple thing like a window based calculator, right? Suppose I spy this calculator. Maximize the calculator, right? Maximize QTP, fine. Click on the spy button and click on this hand, right? And you will see this, see that if I click on 5, right, I can add this 5 into the object repository by clicking on this button, add object to repository, fine. And if I open my object repository, the object will be there, fine, and I can drag 5 like this into the code. Now this feature is not available in the old versions of QTP like QTP 9 dot something. It came in QTP 10. Okay, so similarly I can also add it from the repository window. The same button is present here as well. So when you click on it, QTP will vanish. Okay, you click on the button which you want to add, click on OK, and just drag this button, right? So we'll do this much for today.